In politics, especially in the current environment, where it is very noisy politically, it is very easy to miss a bombshell when it is casually dropped. The best of us at this game of analyzing politics, the most experienced, always miss it once in a while. Did you know, for instance, that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and ODM Secretary General, embattled ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, are working very closely together? Very closely together. What does that mean? They exchange notes, they strategize, they exchange information, the whole list you can think of, where people are working closely together. This information was dropped very casually by Rigathi Gachagua in the middle of a long interview. And many people missed it, including yours truly. I had to catch up with it later with the help of one of you. Oh yes, I can confess. Is this good news? Oh yes, it is very good news for long-suffering Kenyans, especially because of recent developments where analysts who I respect a lot have come out and said that the Sisi Ni Sifuna movement has lost momentum. They have made a terrible strategic decision. This is the verdict of a man whose analysis I really respect, Bwana Muluka. Actually, if you ask me, I personally consider him to be one of the best political analysts we have in the country. That is why one day I really panicked and was shocked and did not know what to do when I discovered that he had joined the Ruto camp. Yeah, this is during the presidency of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I asked myself, what is happening here? Okay? But fortunately, he saw the light very soon. Very early in the game, he saw the light. And the advantage of that is that he came out with a lot of information on how Ruto operates, which I'm sure has been very useful to him and to us Kenyans, because it has come out in his very accurate, detailed analysis. Now, if you respect somebody, it does not mean that you agree with each and everything they say. No. And in this instance, I respectfully disagree that the Sisi Ni Sifuna movement has lost momentum. And in this latest bombshell is a very important clue to support my point that what is happening here, what is happening here politically, Kenyans are going to be shocked. Okay? But let's start this story at the beginning. Although very quickly before you do that, I would like to give you a heads up on what is coming later on my show today. Siaya Governor James Agri Orengo is pushing and appealing for an interstate inquest to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of Raila Odinga. Hey. Orengo says he does not believe Raila died of natural causes. That's something to look forward to, don't you think? Also on my show today is the art of making things worse, where UDA and Ruto are very gifted. And I'll give you many examples, including the very latest of their moves, where they're making things worse. You know, you can be in a situation where things are already bad. And in many instances, by doing nothing, there is a possibility that the thing could blow over and you'll be safe. But then what do you do instead? You go and you make things worse and you seal your fate. Okay? Back to Sifuna Gachagua Union. Starting the story right at the beginning, it is factual that ever since the Sisi Ni Sifuna movement kicked off, they have not made a single mistake. In fact, they have been clearly ahead of their opponents all the time. Because the state has made movements of sending goons. The state has made movements to frustrate them. The state has threatened them through various players on the ground. Do not come here. Do not step here. But Sifuna and his people have always been 1-2 steps ahead, and they've been successful. Now, the truth in this life is that there is absolutely no substitute to experience. Kama una experience, you're greatly disadvantaged. In fact, if you come up against somebody who has experience and little else, and you have everything going for you, chances are very high they will beat you. There is no known substitute for experience. And let's face it, these are young people. Very good in politics, Kenyans love them, but they're very inexperienced in politics. Sifuna, Babu Wino, and company. So what is their secret? Why is it that they've always been 1-2 steps ahead? Ni masomo nyingi? Well, even masomo cannot replace experience. Well, today I will tell you the secret. These Sisi Ni Sifuna chaps are backed by very wise and experienced political advisors, most of whom assisted former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And now the latest we're learning, they have also been tapping into the resources, skills, and experience of a man called Rigathi Gachagua. But according to Muluka and another very experienced analyst I respect, Professor Herman Manyora, the Sisi Ni Sifuna movement have made a tragic strategic mistake that has slowed down the movement, that has slowed down the revolution. Okay? I disagree. And here's why. Allow me to remind us of something that is very relevant here. Remember when Rigathi Gachagua started out? There was a time he went quiet. I'm not sure if you remember that. This was shortly before he left on his US tour. Now, the timing of his going quiet was strange. He had just started picking up momentum. Kwa Murema, more and more people were paying attention to what he was saying. Then suddenly, he stopped. He slowed down. And then to make matters worse, he left the country. But what happened when he returned into the country? Do you remember? He took off like a rocket. And today, like him or hate him, Gachagua is a major force in Kenyan politics. That one you cannot avoid. You cannot ignore him. There is no way you can ignore him as far as Kenyan politics is concerned, currently. Now, before I say what I'm about to say, I am well aware of many of us who are very sensitive, who will say to themselves, and maybe in the comments area, where Chris, you are exposing Sifuna's secrets to his enemies and our enemies politically. Stop! Well, you'll be happy to know I always take that into consideration. And in this particular case, I can assure you, his opponents are well aware of this information. So please, relax. The reason why Gachagua stopped at that time, slowed down, is the same reason the Sisi Ni Sifuna group have also slowed down. And you can be sure that when they return, they will take off like the proverbial rocket. You see, in every battle, in every initiative, there is a very important time where you need to stop, step back, regroup, reorganize, make sure all your ducks are in a row before you go into your final push, where there'll be no time, no room, no opportunity to do what you're doing now. And this usually includes, very important, consolidating, confirming, and even getting brand new support, especially of the financial kind. This is a period which usually involves a lot of negotiations, because this financial backer has made it very clear they do not want 1, 2, 3. But this other financial backer wants exactly that 1, 2, 3. And so you negotiate. There is compromise here and there. And then finally, everybody's on the same page. Everybody agrees. And everybody is ready to pull together for the final push. That is really what it is. It is not a mistake. It is not a strategic blunder. It is a very valuable, wise, strategic move. My opinion. But I believe I've given you very convincing reasons, complete with a real-life example. And I hope that if you doubted at the beginning, when I said that this Gachagua Sifuna thing is a bombshell, I hope now you're on the same page, that the revelation that Rigathi Gachagua is working very closely with Edwin Sifuna is a major bombshell in Kenyan politics. Now on to something else. James Orengo is calling for an inquest into the circumstances surrounding the death of Raila Odinga. Orengo says he believes it was not a natural death. And Orengo adds the circumstances under which Raila Odinga left Kenya for India. Orengo tells us he has reason to believe he did not leave willingly. It is like he was forced. He was pressured into leaving Kenya for India. And even the place where he went, according to Orengo, is suspicious. And the people he went with is even more suspicious, according to Orengo, who of course was very close to Raila. He cannot be ignored when he comes out with something like this. This is not just any other Tom, Dick, Kamau, and Gachagua. No, this is James Orengo, a very close ally of the late Raila Odinga for decades. Now I want us to remember what season we are in. We're in the season of exposure. Things which are supposed to be deep secrets are being exposed every other day. They're being brought into light. Things whispered in darkness, in back rooms, are now being shouted off rooftops. It is the season. And clearly Orengo knows something. But Orengo is in the legal profession, so he cannot tell it to us in detail. It is so-and-so who did this and that is what caused Raila's death. But he's still speaking to us, and we're expected to read between the lines. What he's telling us in clear language is that somebody ended Raila deliberately. Maybe this is a good time to go back into one of my highly sensitive special reports and take it in once again with this explosive new development that seems to confirm the contents of that special report, which gives the motive, the people who did it, why they did it, and why some things went wrong. Now, in case you don't have access to these special reports, don't worry. In a moment, I will tell you exactly how to get hold of it. Very easily. Much more easily than you can imagine. Now, there is something else very important that we should not miss. Orengo, currently, how is he playing his politics? Well, he is part and parcel, in fact, a very key member of the Linda Mwananchi faction within the ODM party, Raila's party. Now, Orengo is not a young man, and many analysts and observers of Kenyan politics have been wondering and asking themselves, what is Orengo doing? Because his age mates are not there in the Linda Mwananchi faction. Many of his age mates, even those who support this faction, are quiet. And so people have been asking, what is Orengo up to? What is Orengo doing with these youngsters? Has he lost it? Well, here's an important clue. Yeah? Think about it. It seems that Orengo may be behaving emotionally. mulimaliza rafiki yangu. Na sasa mnataka kuchukua chama. Hapana, siwezi kubali. Something like that. In other words, and you need to sit down for this one. In other words, the passing on of Raila may be linked to current developments within the ODM party. In other words, what some people are doing within the ODM party is stage 2 of the plan, where stage 1 was to get rid of Raila. I don't know if you're getting me. That is the bombshell. And that is what Orengo is telling us. Think about it. Imagine a situation where you're deeply involved in a case involving inheritance, succession. And then suddenly, the person who is bang in the middle of it, fighting for one of the sides in this succession battle, they can get very brutal. And so you're talking about succession manenos, then suddenly, very suddenly without any warning, this person starts talking about the circumstances that led to the passing on of the person people want to inherit from. What are they saying? They are linking the passing on of that person to the current battle. The people involved in that battle, some of them are obviously involved in foul play linked to the passing on of the owner of the property people are now fighting over. Okay? That should be clear. Because that is exactly the situation with Orengo. Currently, what has Orengo been talking about in recent days? Linda Mwananchi and nothing else. And then suddenly is pushing for an inquest to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of Raila. Jijazie. Please. It is very easy. The issue is not whether Orengo will be successful or not in getting an interstate inquest going. No. The issue is the message has been passed. Watu wamepata message. In other words, is activating sections of the Raila Odinga support base, the dreaded sections, that up to this point may have been quiet, not involved. Okay? And now he's telling them, hey, wake up. Wake up, bwana. And smell the mutura. Oops, smell the coffee. What? Now, on to the art of making things worse. The gift of making things worse for yourself. I firmly believe that historians one day, when they sit down to analyze this period of our history, will not fail to say that here was a regime that was gifted in making things worse for themselves and therefore sealing their own fate. Now, currently, we can already see a situation where you know that people don't want you. People want you gone. But then what do you do instead? You push yourself in their faces constantly. Does that make things better? Or does it in fact make things worse? You see, you cannot avoid human nature. We humans, by the way, are not normal. Okay? We are not reasonable. A casual study of human nature will reveal to you very quickly that in fact, humans are crazy. Crazily unreasonable. Let's take a real life example where most of us have at least some experience. You boil when you see this person. You're really angry at them. You can't stand their sight. And then they disappear. You start missing them. Or even worse, they leave the world of the living. You start crying. You go to their funeral. You contribute 1 million Kenya shillings, the last money in your savings, for their funeral arrangements. You're grief-stricken. Hey, hold on a minute. Isn't this the same person who, when you saw them when they were alive, you would start boiling with rage? What is happening? That's human nature for you. So please remember, the next time you tell somebody, please be reasonable, you're actually telling them, please stop being human. In my opinion, President Kaguta Yoweri Museveni and President Paul Biya of Cameroon, an ancient of ancients, yeah, understand human nature much better than our president. And that is why there was something very similar about their presidential campaigns. They never appeared in person. Did you notice that? They never went out to campaign. Instead, they sent people out with big photographs and statues and caricatures of themselves and with loudspeakers. In my opinion, these people understood human nature. They knew the people hated them. And therefore, the last thing they were supposed to do is to push themselves in the faces of people who they knew already hated them. Actually, to be very bold and clear and to cut to the chase, this regime got where it is today because of their gift in making things worse. Let me give you a few quick examples. Immediately after the elections, they were very fond of reminding Kenyans, we won the elections. Tulinyorosha Raila and company. We won. Did that make things better for them? No. It reminded people of how they rigged themselves in. If they had kept quiet, things would have been much better. We had the NHIF, which had many problems, but was working. They replaced it with SHA. I don't need to say anything more. We have people stuck in India, waiting for life-saving medical attention. And those people in India, those hospitals, medical facilities, are saying, no, we know SHA never pays. So until some money lands here, we are not lifting a finger. They found an economy where at least Kenyans were managing to make a living. And they decided to make things better, not realizing their gift is to make things worse. And so they started off by increasing taxes, housing levy, raiding the pockets of Kenyans who are already struggling to make ends meet. What is the result? The economy of Kenya today is on its deathbed. But where this gift had the biggest effect in finishing them, was in politics. Now, one of the lessons from my late political lecturer that took me the longest time to swallow and digest and accept, yani ilinichukua muda mrefu sana kumeza, is that your opponents are very useful. They are vital to you. Your bitter rivals in politics are very important. And it is very important for you to do everything in your power to keep them in play. Hey, that one took me time to swallow. And my lecturer took me to one of the set books in my lectures, in my lessons. Professor David Goldsworthy's biography on Mboya, titled Mboya, the man Kenya wanted to forget. According to the professor, Mboya, as brilliant, in fact a political genius as he was, made one political mistake that cost him his life. Which one? When he got the opportunity, he fought very hard to get rid of his major political rival and enemy forever. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Mboya never hit it off. They were enemies from the minute they saw each other. It was hate at first sight. And I believe matters were made worse by the big age difference. Odinga was a mzee. Mboya was a young man in his 20s. And this is the way the professor put it. As long as Odinga was around, fighting Mboya and also fighting the Kenyatta regime had two major rivals to deal with. Odinga and Mboya. But as soon as Mboya had gotten rid of his enemy Odinga politically and finished him kabisa, now the Kenyatta regime had only one problem, Mboya. And of course, it was very easy to deal with that problem. Finish the man. And that's exactly what happened. On 5th July 1969, they assassinated him. Game shot, end of problem. In other words, had Odinga remained in play, then Mboya would have remained alive. Wow. Hey, that is the nature of politics. Politics needs deep thinkers. People who know how to avoid emotions and think of something very deeply. Eh? When you bring in emotions is when you become now an expert, a guru at the art of making things worse, especially for yourself. Fast forward to the present. Of course, number one on the list of political blunders, indeed the political blunder of the century that the Ruto regime made, was to get rid of Gachagua, to impeach Gachagua. They are still feeling the pain and destruction from that silly, emotional blunder. There is absolutely no doubt that UDA and Ruto would have remained much stronger than they are today had Gachagua remained as the deputy president, fighting Ruto, yes, but still the deputy president. Ruto would have been in a much stronger position. Because, for instance, Gachagua would not have dared to rally Murema behind him. There is no way that would have happened. And therefore, current campaigns within Murema would have been much more easy than they are currently. Now, officially, we don't know about Orengo and Ngeno. Maybe they died of natural causes, okay? Officially speaking. However, in case those people are removed from the picture, that was a terrible mistake. Those were terrible mistakes. Why? Because Orengo's exit rallied the Mulembe nation away from the Ruto regime. In fact, these days, the Ruto regime cannot, under any circumstances, make any inroads into the Luyas, into the Mulembe nation. No way! With Ngeno, it completely removed the Kipsigis community within the larger Kalenjin tribe from the two-term movement. And now, the Kipsigis are very clearly and loudly one term. Yeah? Can you imagine, even during the funeral, we had chants of one term. Can you imagine that? And this brings us to my very latest red-hot special report titled, "When will current miscalculations deep inside State House stop? When will these crazy miscalculations, in line with the gift of making things worse, much worse for yourself, when will they stop?" And of course, in this special report, I detail exactly what is happening, including the calculations for the upcoming general elections, and especially the presidential elections. The precise evil plans at play, some of which have already unfolded, and some of which are yet to unfold, including plans to maliza some certain people. Oh yes. The contents of this special report will shock you to your bones. And I have some very good news for you. Thanks to a persistent sponsor who is all for a better Kenya, wants as many of us as possible to have this sensitive information, you can be able to get this highly sensitive special report for the highly sponsored price of only Kenya shillings 999 or $8. Please move with speed. This offer is going to end very shortly. It's not going to be around for a long time. It is for a very limited period only. And there's more. All those who purchase this one, wait for this one, all those who purchase this highly sensitive special report will automatically get a permanent golden key, of course already sponsored. You'll permanently get a Kumekucha golden key, which means going forward, you will never need again to pay for anything. Wow! Please move with speed and take full advantage of this heavily sponsored offer. You can see details on your screens right now. Please move with speed to avoid disappointment. Oh, kumekucha sikuona. No. Please act now. Okay? Until next time, this is Chris Karaoke Kumekucha.